Hello. Oh, that's kind of loud. Hello. Can you hear me on Zoom? Awesome. And actually, can you say something to make sure I can hear you? Hi, Rainey. Hi, Nate.
Hello, Linda.
Hi, Leaf and Nina.
Hi, Linda.
Hello. Nate, are you saying
Can you
something to
hear?
me?
I did. Can you hear me?
I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
I
Rainey, can you say something?
yeah, I can
Dang,
hear
I don't
you.
hear y'all. Hang on a
Can
minute. Let
can
me
you
play
hear
with my
me?
speakers. What? Oh, can one of y'all say something now?
Hello, hello.
Yes.
Something now.
Yes, it is working now. Thank you.
You can hear?
Yep, I can hear
Okay.
you. And you
Hi,
can hear me.
Linda.
Hi. There's Tim. Tim can be microphone runner. Hi, Bob. How are you?
Hi, Linda. Good. Hi, Rainey.
See you.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Good.
Hello, Bob. Good to see you.
Hi, Karma. Hi, Don.
Test, 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 test.
Hello, hello. Is that Dinesh?
Hey, good afternoon. Good evening.
Hi, welcome. Don's just arrived, so we're getting all situated and then we'll get going, everyone. Don, this is Jeevan, and he's gonna be helping with like setup on Monday nights. Yay! And he's also a doctor. Doctors unite.
Your name on somebody's progress note or whatever. Yeah. The patient thrived, I must admit. Anyway.
Hello, everyone on YouTube. Hi, Ian, Ashley, Teresa. Hello, hello.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, while Dawn is writing on the board, I have a few announcements. This is our last class of this specific module of Discovering Buddhism. So this is How to Meditate Class 5. And we're going to take a 1-week break. So next Monday, March 27th, we do not have Monday night class, so don't come. The building will be locked. And then we'll pick back up on Monday, April 3rd, and that will be Presenting the Path, and Hemant Pandya will be teaching that one. And that is a 7-session module, so that'll run for 7 weeks. So it starts on April 3rd and will end on May 15th. And let's see, in the meantime, though, if you're looking for other things to do, there are lots and lots going on at the center. So if you go to kadampa-center.org, and my favorite place, as many of you know, is the top right corner that says calendar. Just click on calendar and you can see everything that's happening, and then on each individual page or date on the calendar, you can click on a link to whatever's happening that day for more information. Some things you do have to register for, some things you don't, so check out the calendar page. There's lots and lots happening. In the meantime, oh no, I already said that. Yeah, see the calendar. But also, as we come to a close with this module of Discovering Buddhism, I just wanted to remind everyone that we do everything here at Kadampa Center on donation basis only. So any heartfelt donation is completely welcomed and appreciated. It helps us, of course, keep on the lights and have water and trash pickup and Wi-Fi and internet and all that good stuff that we need to run our center and support our teachers. We have 2 resident teachers, Geshe Gelik and Geshe Sangpo, and we also usually give an offering to our teachers, including our Discovering Buddhism teachers. I think that's it. Does anyone have any questions for me before we get started? Anyone in here or online? Okay, I think we're good then. Thank you for your attention. And don't worry if you are online and can't see the board right now. The next camera view will probably pick it up, and if not, I'll read it to you.
Okay.
And Bob,
Sorry for the typos. There's got to be some in there.
Bob, I'll be sure to ask your question once we get rolling.
Say it again.
There's a question online, but do you want to get to it first or after prayers?
Well, I'd rather not answer questions right yet.
Okay, we'll get to it.
Let me get settled down here.
We'll get to it in a bit then.
All right. This is my Buddh Gaya blanket. I've had it forever. Anyway. All right, so I'm going to do a little bit more reading tonight than I want to, but let's do the prayers and everything.
Sure.
Ready for?
It's let me share the screen as well. Do you want to do refuge and bodhicitta? It's page 34.
34, yeah.
Yeah. And then going into four measurables is page 34, 35.
Okay. All right. So before we launch into that, let's take a couple of minutes to just maybe do whatever version of meditation you need to do to settle your mind. The non-realm breathing is a good one, but whichever one you need to do, just for a couple of minutes. Scan your body for any areas of tension you might be holding on to. Try to relax. Maybe start out from your feet and just come up your body, looking for any areas where you might be experiencing some discomfort or tension, and allow that to dissipate. And sometimes when you have pain in the body, it's the instinct is to kind of push it away or resist it. And oftentimes, if you just allow your mind to fully experience whatever it is that's there and notice that it's changing moment to moment, sometimes you can just, if it doesn't completely disappear, pain often will diminish. So as I said, at least I think I said a couple of times anyway, when Lama Yeshe was kind of he and Lama Zopa, I consider them the same. But anyway, I took refuge from Lama Yeshe many years ago, and he famously said, if you meditate for 60 minutes and you spend like 59 minutes setting your motivation, in other words, an altruistic motivation, that you want to improve yourself so that you can be a greater service to others. Along those lines, I must become enlightened in order to benefit all sentient beings. That might be a little bit hard to bite off, but that's the ultimate goal of a Mahayana spiritual warrior, bodhisattva, is to aim for supreme enlightenment. But anyway, setting this motivation, sincerely feeling some sense of altruism, wanting to help others, and realizing that we have to get our act together. We have to do the work. to really be able to help others, we have to get our mind, our life together. We have to develop our qualities, eliminate our faults as much as possible. And so we're not going to spend 60 minutes doing that, but that's the key point, is to set this altruistic motivation for practice. Everything else kind of follows that intention throughout the rest of the next hour, hour and a half, ever how long it takes tonight. So let's let's do the refuge and bodhicitta prayers. Okay. And I remember last time I mentioned you can, if you're really good at visualization, you could instantly imagine Shakyamuni Buddha who embodies the Buddha Dharma and the Sangha in the space in front. And as you say these prayers, you could imagine light and nectar entering our body, blessing our body, speech, and mind. But that may be more than you can do right now, but just something to think about. Even if you imagine a light, that's really, for some of us, that's really good enough. Excuse me. Okay, we do refuge in generating bodhicitta 3 times. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. We haven't talked about 7-limb prayer much, but there's some things that kind of stand out. So the first line, sorry. First line, we can say it together, then I'll say something. Reverently I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind. So this is paying homage to the enlightened beings with our body, speech, and mind. And it's an antidote to pride. Each one of these lines is an antidote to something. I present clouds of every type of offering, actual and imagined. So what's that an antidote to? Miserliness, greed, right? I declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time. So acknowledging our negativities is the first step to purifying our negative actions. And those are the weeds in our garden that prevent us, that cause our minds to not be able to count to 10 breaths because our mind goes off in a tangent. And rejoice in the merit of all holy and ordinary beings. Well, rejoicing is an antidote to jealousy. But rejoicing in the merit of holy and ordinary beings actually increases. Whenever we do something positive and rejoice, it's said not from an egocentric point of view, but just a heartfelt point of view. Rejoicing in our positive actions actually benefits our mind, and makes us want to do it more and more. please remain until the end of cyclic existence. So we're asking the teachers to please remain until the end of cyclic existence. So, and turn the wheel of Dharma for living beings. So this creates the causes for us to have teachers in this and future lives. And then lastly, I dedicate my own merits and those of all others to the great enlightenment. Again, dedication is the way we seal the virtuous merit that we create with the Mahayana motivation. It becomes the cause for our enlightenment. It doesn't get lost in the sea of merit, and specifically for that purpose. And then the mandala offering, and this is just traditionally done for teachings, where you imagine you're offering the entire universe and of everything that's good, because the teachings are so valuable, they're so precious, are the key to the happiness not only in this life but future lives, and we sincerely want from our heart of hearts to have these teachings, so we're willing to give up everything for that. That's the attitude that may not be there now, but it's the ideal attitude to do the mandala offering, is to imagine that you're offering, literally they call it Mount Meru, is actually Mount Kailash, which is in Tibet, maybe northern India, something. Anyway, sometimes they think of Mount Kailash as being the center of the universe, but Mount Meru, surrounded by 4 continents with all kinds of beautiful things. We're offering all of that to the Buddhas to receive the teachings. This ground, anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha field and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryata Yami. And this is like a mudra. This is called a mudra, a hand mudra. You see people, it looks kind of weird, but anyway, it's the two ring fingers sticking up symbolize Mount Meru, and then these other around the 4 continents. It's just a symbol, you might say, of the universe. All right. So, I've been thinking about, I think about this class when I'm doing it. I'm thinking about it a lot. But what's going to be useful, what's not going to be useful, blah, blah, blah. But while I've been doing this class, I've listened to an audible book it's called The Good Life. And I may have referenced it a few times, but it's, it's a prospective study started about 87 years ago at Harvard. And they looked at all of these people's, they started interviewing these people. Some of these people are deceased now, because 87 years ago, it's been going on a long time. And the resounding message of this study is that for well-being and happiness and for health, the most important thing is good, positive relationships. Interesting. Didn't even say Buddha Dharma. It's because not everybody knows Buddha Dharma, right? But good relationships seem to be the one thing that stands out as the most important cause of health and well-being in this study so far. And so I just read this article just a couple of days ago. And we're talking about healthy lifestyle might slow age-related decline in memory and cognition. That becomes more important as you get older, right? But everybody wants to know what that means. So all right. All right, of the 6 lifestyle factors, diet had the strongest effect on memory decline, followed by cognitive activity, physical exercise, and social contacts. I'll say that again. Strongest effect on memory decline. All right, wait a minute. Of the lifestyle factors, diet had the strongest effect on memory decline, followed by cognitive activity, physical exercise, and social contact. And I thought about, like, how does, what is, again, going back to this book on the good life and the importance of relationships. We talk about the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, and people really don't, everybody knows what the Buddha is, the enlightened beings, and the Dharma, the realizations really in the minds of enlightened beings. That's the Dharma, not just the books. That's the relative Dharma. The ultimate Dharma is the realizations in the minds of holy beings. And then the Sangha, we kind of blow by Sangha, like, well, not that important, not that big a deal. But our Sangha's taken a hit, hadn't it, during the pandemic? I mean, that which seems to be the most important thing in terms of our long-term health and health and well-being, the spiritual community has been decimated in a lot of spiritual communities, not just this one. So I think it's a big deal. I think the Sangha is a big deal. We think of Sangha here, ordinarily we think of Sangha as like we're Sangha, right? We're the people that come in, practice together, and maybe support each other, and and hopefully as people get over the kind of fear of being around other people and picking up germs and stuff like that, hopefully we'll be able to get back to a more normal life. But this spiritual community is a big deal in Buddhism, and there's the different kinds of Sangha, but there's the robes. In the traditional teachings, they talk about the Sangha as being those who've taken ordination, right? But the ultimate Sangha are those who, whether you're a monk or nun or a layperson, is somebody who's realized emptiness. So those are in the traditional teachings, but for us, it's also really the people around us that support us in our practice. The fact that, you showed up tonight. So you're supporting each other just by being here, by being present. I know that, for example, a lot of times in past classes, people have gotten together afterwards to kind of hash over the teachings after discovering Buddhism, try to find something, if there was things that they were confused about or having conversations about. It's really important. A part of a Buddha Dharma is to meditation is not the purpose. The purpose of meditation, remember what we said it was? Building up or cultivating positive states of mind. Meditation is not the goal. It's the method. It's one of them. Behaving ourselves, as Venerable Robina would say, keep your mouth shut and your hands to yourself. That's, restraining the actions of your body, speech. The mind, a little bit more difficult, but still something we have to do. So, so there's a lot that you could, say that, but meditation is part of the path of Buddhism. It's possible to realize emptiness while you're just going through your daily life. There's stories of practitioners who are like sweeping the floor, and all of a sudden having a moment where they were, when they saw emptiness directly. There are practices that we do where, to develop these positive states of mind. We'll do a couple of them in a minute, but meditation is just a method that is beneficial, but not for everybody and not all the time. Sometimes what we need to do is cultivate more positive karma, like do positive actions. And of course, restraining our behavior is a big part of the path. In fact, one of our teachers said that of all the texts, and behind us, is all the Tibetan texts, and they're all in obviously in Tibetan, can't read a word of it, but 2/3 of those texts have to do with ethical self-discipline. It's a big deal from the Buddhist perspective. And I'll give you a quick example. When you look out right now in the room, you see colors, you see whatever you see. Maybe you see friends, maybe you see the statues, you see me, whatever you're looking at. And where is this coming from? Because when we talk about emptiness from the Buddhist perspective, everything that we see appears to come from its own side, doesn't it? You get what I mean by that? Like, this is called a rosary, and you think the rosary is here, but your mind is creating rosary, and the name rosary. It's a projection of our mind. There's data here, but our mind projects. It's literally as if when you go to find rosary, you can't find anything but atoms, and even the atoms, the smallest part of the atom is more space than it is. You can't find anything solid here at a subatomic level. And so when we look at emptiness, we realize that things don't exist out there independent of our mind labeling it. There's nothing. It's almost as if, as long as she said, it's almost as if there's a blank screen, and our mind is like painting our reality, projecting our reality, creating our reality all the time, 24/7. There's nothing exists out there independent of my mind labeling it. There's nothing that exists out there. There's no I that exists independent of my mind labeling it. Okay? So where are these labels coming from? Where are they coming from? It's like now everything's gone digital, but there used to be these things called frames on a movie, movie reel. These frames, each one of these, every second, we in the Buddhism we say like in a finger snap, there's like 60 mind moments. So there's 60 frames that just ripened in that split second. All right, and constantly we're creating. So where are these frames coming from? These we'll call them seeds, frames. They're actually karmic seeds that are ripening in our experience to create our reality. So what kind of karmic seeds are ripening right now? I'm going to say if this is a place that you want to be and it's a positive experience, they're positive karmic seeds based on past actions that were virtuous, that didn't harm you, didn't harm others. So our experience of reality is dependent on our karma, on the seeds that were planted in the past, ripening now in this moment to create my reality. So karma is the force that creates our reality. If we want to be happy, if we want to be literally forced by our karma to see ourselves as happy and joyful and having a good life and having relationships at work and so on, how do we do that? Well, we practice virtue, which means not harming ourselves, not harming others. So reality is constructed that way. Reality is constructed so that if we want a good life, if we want to be happy, if we want to have a good life and a good death, we have to create the karmic causes for that, for those seeds to ripen at those times going, in the future. And there's a lot of challenges coming up because karma ripens all the time. And it's pretty much, most of our karma is not very bad. Most of our actions are not motivated by what I would call non-attachment, non-hatred, non-ignorance, which basically are motivated by greed, hatred, and ignorance, or selfish, self-cherishing attitude. Most of our actions are 24/7 are motivated by that self-centered mind. And that creates future suffering. So we need to learn how to purify our karma. It's really important. And so we'll do short Vajrasattva practice at the end tonight. But start out with, is anybody, I don't leave much time for questions. Sorry about that. But I am here. I'll be here next week. No, I'm kidding. But anyway, if you have questions, I'll be here after class. So right now we're going to do a meditation, which in this traditional Buddhist scripture is said it's important to remember death. This sounds morbid, doesn't it? But just hang in here with me. To remember death at the beginning, before you start the practice, remember death and impermanence, because it will make you pay attention and want to do the practice well. In the middle, it's important to remember death and impermanence. Again, so you'll be present and do the practice well. And at the end, it's important to remember death and impermanence. In other words, it's always important to remember death and impermanence. Always important. And yet, in this culture, we don't even want to talk about it. Death, no, I don't want to talk about it. But here, we're going to do a little meditation and think about our own demise and what that might look like and what's important. But death and impermanence is said to be the realization of death and impermanence. And I'm not taking karma is important too, but I've heard it said that realization of death and impermanence, and I'm talking about gross impermanence, like this body getting born, getting older, getting sick, and dying. That's gross impermanence, right? But then this subtle impermanence, moment to moment to moment, this body's changing, constantly in a state of flux, and our mind is as well. This is going on all the time. Well, this meditation is more about gross impermanence. Again, there's a little thing that Lama Zopa encourages everybody to memorize. Basically, when you wake up in the morning, you think, by the grace of the three jewels, I didn't die last night. So right away, think about death. In fact, Lama Zopa says it's a good idea to think, today I'm going to die when you wake up. That sounds a little harsh. I haven't heard anybody else say that, but Rinpoche, he says stuff like that. But he says, because if you thought about that, if you thought, today I'm going to die, it might be a different day. Your choices would be different, maybe. I think mine would be. But anyway, by the grace of the three jewels, I didn't die last night. I'm so fortunate to be a human being again today and to practice Dharma. From now on, I'm going to give happiness to all sentient beings with compassion and love. That's a little thing that he asks all of his students to try to say first thing in the morning, before you even get out of bed. Remember death and impermanence. So not an unimportant practice. So why don't you sit in a meditation posture? We're going to touch on these points, and there'll be a conclusion that we'll come to. And I usually don't like to read this stuff, but I might read a little bit of it. That's not going to work. All right, so the first one is death is definite. Yeah. First one's death is definite. So why don't you sit up and relax your body. Now usually this is done in 3 points, and then there's 3 reasons underneath each point, so I won't spend much time. I may not get all the 9 reasons, but death is definite. So take a look and see if you really think you're going to die. Do you really think you're going to die? And I would challenge you to take a look at that, because I'm going to say we don't. We think we are not going to die because the I that our ignorance projects appears to exist independently. That sense of I that we hold on to and cling to so precious. It doesn't seem, it seems so solid, so real, independent. It doesn't seem like it's changing. It doesn't have that feeling at all. It feels permanent. And yet when we logically, of course, we go, yeah, everybody dies. That is not rocket science. But at our heart of hearts, we still cling to the notion that we're permanent, that, we're not going to die. And yet this something that we all have to do is, guaranteed. It's the only thing in life that's certain, is that we're going to die. So everyone has to die. And look around, all the famous people, all the holy beings, everyone. You can think about, past presidents, your grandparents or distant relatives. You can remember specific people who died in your life, people that you admire, going back for years and years. In 100 years, nobody will be here. None of us will be here, for sure. And our lifespan is diminishing, like moment to moment. With every sort of tick of the clock, tick, coming closer to the moment of death. And I like the image that like we were born with a bag of money, and we have to pay for everything. Every breath, every time we blink our eyes, every time we open our mouth, with every microsecond, we're reaching into our bag of money, paying, to be able to have this experience, that experience. Everything cost us something. It cost us precious time. And we don't know how much money is in that bag. We don't know when that bag will be empty. Just because you're 20 years old, or maybe you're 70, or maybe you just got born, you don't know how much is in that bag. You go, well, I'm going to go buy the actuarial tables, But guess what? Those statistics, they're not you. Every moment, each passing second, brings us, with each inhalation and exhalation, brings us that much closer to our moment of death. By the way, if you don't want to do this meditation, you can just blank out. Please don't freak out. Just blank out and follow your breath. You don't have to think about these things if you don't want to. And the amount of time during your life used to develop your mind is really, really, really small. Isn't it? I mean, even if you meditated this morning for like 30 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever, and you came here tonight, the percentage of, if our mind is the chief determinant of our happiness and well-being, and we spend so little time cultivating it, it's amazing. It's just, it's such a small amount of time in the course of 24 hours. It's minutes at best. Now, hopefully, with some time and practice, we can transform our whole life into Dharma practice. As Lama somebody asked him, when do you practice? I hardly ever see you meditating, Lama. When do you practice? He says, basically, he said 24/7. Always, every breath, every moment, practicing. Being aware, being present, being mindful of compassion, kindness, emptiness, karma, being mindful of the things that are important. So little time spent in Dharma practice. So everybody dies, and our lifespan is continuously decreasing, and very little time spent in Dharma practice. And you are going to die. That's something you know. You're going to die. I'm going to die. So what's the conclusion? When you look at this, if you have some faith in Buddha Dharma, the conclusion is, I must practice the Dharma. I must place positive imprints on my mind stream as much as possible from now until I take my last breath. I must practice Dharma. Dharma, Sanskrit word that means that which separates beings from suffering. But we're talking about Buddha Dharma. I must practice Dharma. And the next point to contemplate is the time of death is completely indefinite, random, have no control over that. Could happen any moment. So it's pretty obvious, isn't it? I mean, there are people that woke up today that it was not on, they had no expectation that this would be their last day on this planet. And yet they're dead, for whatever reason. An accident, something, could have been anything. So the human life expectancy is completely uncertain. Again, we think the actuarial tables say 78 years for men or whatever for women, but again, those are just numbers. Sometimes the young die before the old. The life expectancy is uncertain. If we wanted to talk about now moments, this is really the only time we have. This moment now. Anything could happen to take our lives. The life expectancy is uncertain. And there are many causes of death. So many of the things that, the obvious ones would be things like infections. We just went through a pandemic. Many thousands of people died that ordinarily would not have died. But even every day, people are dying from diseases. Many of the things that make our lives enjoyable can become the causes of our demise. For example, food, which we all enjoy, but if you get food that's like poisoned or somehow spoiled and makes you sick, and then you die. Happens every day. We have cars that make our lives easier, but easily can become the cause of our death. We go on wonderful vacations and the plane crashes, or we get to some place and we're hiking and we're doing whatever we do, and then, we run into a grizzly bear or something that could take our lives. I mean, there's so many things that can take our lives. Little tiny blood clots, these little tiny blood clots that are nothing, can take our lives. And that's the other point, that the body is so fragile. We think it's like something really amazing. And we put an enormous amount of energy into preening it and decorating it and feeding it just the right things and getting the right kinds of sensory experiences that are going to bring this body some, comfort and pleasure. But it's really fragile. It just is one little cell goes berserk. One little cell goes berserk and mutates, and off to the races. We have cancer. Happens to babies, happens to young people, happens to young adults, and happens, I remember one class I took where it said, everybody, if you live long enough, you're going to get cancer because your immune system is going this way, going downhill from the get-go. You live long enough, you're going to get some kind of cancer. This tiny blood clot can cause strokes, heart attacks, infections. Some little germ that we inhaled. We got something on our hands, and we rubbed our eyes. Did something to introduce infection into our body. Again, this body's so fragile. Seems so substantial and like nothing could happen to it. But eventually, even our body will let us down. The body will stop. It's constantly in a state of deterioration. Moment by moment. It's been doing that from the moment of conception. From the moment of conception, it's been changing. Eventually, it'll die. That's a Buddhist answer for what's the cause of death? Birth. It's going to happen to everybody. This body, which seems so great right now, will not be able to support us for much longer. So the time of death is uncertain, indefinite. We have no control over it. Could happen any moment. Human life expectancy is uncertain. There are many causes of death, and our body is really fragile. Death could happen at any moment. Now, the first one is death is definite. The second point is it could happen anytime. What's the conclusion now? I must practice the Dharma, and I must do it immediately. I must not waste 1 millisecond of the rest of my life not making an effort to practice Dharma, to put positive imprints on my mental continuum that cause happiness. I must practice the Dharma now. Must not put it off. Oh, I'll do that retreat next year, or I'll do that practice another day. I'm busy, I'm tired, whatever. We have so many excuses. We must practice the Dharma, and we must do it immediately. Do it right now. And then the last point is the only thing that's of any benefit, the only currency, I like to say it that way, on your deathbed. Imagine that right now. Imagine you're on your deathbed. What's going to help you now? Is that bucket list that you checked off, that you created, and you spent an enormous amount of time and energy? Is that going to help you? All the pleasurable experiences that you've had at your moment of death as it approaches, any help? None. And your money, we work so hard for that. Is that going to help us at the time of death? Our friends and family. We want our friends and family. We want our family around us at the time of death. Sometimes that's the worst. Those are the last people you want around. The Buddhist perspective is who you want around you at the time of your death is your guru, who can help you remember positive things and have positive images in your mind, because that'll be the determinant of your next life, not a bunch of, family, around crying and wailing and saying, please don't go, like that. That's not going to help. That's not going to help. And our body, for goodness sakes, our body's not going to help us. That's what's failing us at the time of death. The only currency, you're on your deathbed and you got a minute to live. What do you want your mind, how do you want to die? What's a good death? How do you create the causes for a good death while you're alive? What would a good death, like completely at peace, not freaking out, thinking of others, thinking of your maybe you think of your family, wishing them well, let them go, not clinging. Thinking of all the other people, all the other beings in the world that are going through this experience right now. As you go through it, imagining, may whatever discomfort and fear that might arise in my mind, anything that's negative, may it ripen, may other people's discomfort and negativity ripen upon me right now. I'm going to take on their suffering, which is compassion, isn't it? Wishing to take on others' suffering and wishing them happiness and a fearless death and a good death and a peaceful death, and a death where they're focused on others, focused on kindness, on virtuous states of mind, not freaking out. We're practicing, even as we die, we could be practicing compassion and loving kindness. That last minute of our life. But only if we've done the work leading up to our death is that going to happen. So what's the conclusion? The conclusion is I must practice the Dharma. I must practice it immediately. Without a moment's delay, every moment, I need to turn into Dharma practice. And I must practice the Dharma immediately, and I must practice the pure Dharma, not the made-up Dharma, but the pure Dharma. What is the pure Dharma? Certainly from the Buddhist perspective, it's the teachings and the realizations in the minds of all the holy beings from the time of the Buddha until now. Those teachings, the most profound teachings for you are the ones that affect your mind in a positive way. But I must practice pure Dharma now. That's the conclusion. So as we do these contemplations, we come to this last conclusion. And again, the analytical meditation part can stop, and we try to develop some intuitive feeling for these points, that death is definite. I must practice the Dharma. The time of death is completely random, indefinite. I must practice now. And the only thing of benefit at the time of death are the realizations on our mental continuum. So I must practice the Dharma now, and I must practice it purely, untainted by our own egocentric perspectives. So if you get any intuitive feeling at that moment, stop thinking, analyzing, contemplating, and just hold on to that experience in your heart for as long as you can. When it disappears, you can let it go and end the meditation, or you can go back and recultivate that feeling again. But try to, if you have any kind of experience, intuitive feeling about these points, just hold on to that just for a minute or so. And this is the placement meditation, this is concentration practice. You want to keep your mind focused single-pointedly on that experience. If distractions come, you can let them go. Go back to that experience. Okay. All right. So that's pretty self-explanatory, right? Any questions about that? If you have, again, if you had trouble, if thinking like that is hard for you, some people it is. They're not ready to think about these points, and that's okay. You may never be ready, but it's an important subject, I think, for us to think about. And in our culture, it's definitely not something that people like to talk about very much. But it is part of life, isn't it? Whether we like it or not. So any questions, comments? I can't look on the board. Linda, anybody out there in
Anyone online?
La La Land? I don't know that many people.
Doesn't look like it.
No? Okay.
We're good.
All right. So why don't we just take 1 minute, stand up, stretch. We're going to do the Vajrasattva meditation practice, purification practice, and then we'll finish up at 8:30. This is Robbie Watkins' idea to turn these classes into 1-hour classes. It was never mine. Anyway, so how many people know the 100-syllable mantra of Vajrasattva? This is not many syllables, is it? There is a 100-syllable mantra. for this particular practice. Now over here, let's see, I'm thinking this is Vajrasattva. Well, it is, but this is Vajrasattva with consort, which we're not going to visualize. There's a Vajrasattva that's a solitary, white being in a body, of course, made of light. And Vajrasattva is about purification practice. So this is more of a Hatha Yoga Tantra image than a Kriya or Action Tantra image. But there's a 100-syllable mantra. Who wants to say it? Anybody? Yeah, go for it.
Oh, wait, can you wait for the mic real quick?
See, now this is important because it's important if you want to do purification practice, it's important to do, you can do the short mantra, but it's best to do the long mantra. And if you can do it 21 times every night, that's great. If you can take a couple of months off and do it 100,000, well, you can do it 100,000 times, but it's good to do a retreat at some point in your life where you might do 100,000 of these mantras. And the fastest I've ever seen anybody do it is like 4 weeks. It would take many hours a day. Yeah, go ahead.
Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tanopatista Dredomi Bhava Sutosame Bhava Supposame Bhava Naroktome Bhava Savasidame Prayatsa Savakarma Susame Sitam Shal Kurohum Ha Ho Bhagawa Vajrasattva Samaya
Humpe. Yeah. So, you can learn that. You can memorize it. And it's nice that you can sit down when you're doing your purification practice and you can, Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya. And when you're doing it at home, when you're in a retreat situation with a lot of people, you don't want to make a lot, you wouldn't say it out loud. You would say it right under your breath, Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Dinupatida Didumapava. And you can say it fast. You got 100,000 to go, right? So you want to speed it up. But you also, it's conjoined with visualization. And there are 3 visualizations. So here we are standing, but we can have a seat again. There are 3 visualizations that go along with this. As you say, we're going to just do, because most people don't know it, so we're just going to do the short one. But the visualization basically is that you can imagine above your head on lotus, the moon is Vajrasattva, completely made of light. This white being seated in the lotus posture, lotus position, and he's we're going to think that it's the living presence of the Buddha who's going to help us purify our mind. So in essence, we're using our mind to purify our mind. We're imagining this holy being, but we're feeling as if there's a living presence of a being that could help us purify our mind. And Vajrasattva is made of light, and he's got his hands crossed. And his right hand, he holds a Vajra, which symbolizes method or action, you might say. The principal method in Buddhism is compassion. And then the left hand is the bell, symbolizing wisdom. Okay. Also sometimes they equate, the bell and wisdom with female energy, and the Vajra and method and compassion with male energy. And it's the union of method and wisdom when they're crossed like this. So everything has meaning. Okay. As we say this mantra, Om Vajrasattva Hum, usually if you're a good visual, and some people are just naturally good at visualization, some people not, but imagine that Vajrasattva is above the crown of our head, completely made of light, and there's a disc at his heart, and around the edges of the disc are the syllables of the 100-syllable mantra. But for us, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 syllables, right? So Om Vajrasattva Hum, Om Vajrasattva Hum. And as we say that, we're going to imagine light and nectar coming from these syllables coming down through Vajrasattva's body and entering the crown of our head. And we'll just do 3 visualizations. The first 3 we're going to imagine that light and nectar goes through our body and through the lower orifices and disappears in the space in front of us. And we're purifying a negative karma of body. So the 3 principal, when we talk about the 10 non-virtues and stuff, of course, many things that we could do with our body, but the 3 principal ones are killing and stealing and sexual misconduct. Adultery being that sort of, sometimes it's just say adultery, but it's just, sexual behavior that harms others and ourselves. So that would be, so imagine that the light and nectar comes through. The first few minutes we do it, we'll imagine it comes through the crown of our head and completely pushes all the negativity, negative karma, not just this lifetime, but all our former lifetimes as well. Because we've done everything. We've done all these evil things that we think, oh, well, I never did that, but you've done it. Not you, but when your mind stream was in a different form, you did it. Maybe you were a crocodile, who knows, but you were a lion, but in some form, in some lifetime, we've done everything. So you don't have to get too nitpicky about this. So killing and stealing and adultery or sexual misconduct. Imagine that light and nectar comes in and pushes all of that negativity out through the lower orifices of the body, and it disappears in space in front of us. This is when we'll do it, Om Vajrasattva Hum, Om Vajrasattva Hum, Om Vajrasattva Hum. And the crucial thing, I'll go over it in a minute, but the crucial thing is to remember what you've done to the best of your knowledge. Right? Bring to mind things that you regret. And then when you do it, focus on the visualization and that you're letting it go, okay? And then the 4 of speech, we imagine that the light and nectar, again, continuing to come into our body, but now it's we're like a glass. And if you fill up a glass, let's say a glass with holes at the top. That's kind of what we are. We're a container with holes at the top. And the light and nectar fills us up from the bottom up, and as it comes up to here, it goes out our ears, our nose, our mouth, all the orifices of the upper part of the body. And it's like dirt in the bottom of the glass fills up, and then the dirt spills out, okay, through the orifices. And that's purifying. That visualization is to purify our speech. And what are the 4 principal? We say, for body, it's killing, stealing, and adultery. For speech, it's lying, deceiving others, slander, harsh speech, disturbing others' minds, and frivolous, mindless, gossipy kinds of speech. From the heaviest to the lightest, right? But they all are destructive. They're destroying our precious life, creating karma for not good things. So we want to purify that negative karma. So we imagine, again, light and nectar filling us up from the bottom up and then spilling out through the upper orifice. So that's purifying the negative karma of speech. And then we go, the next visualization, light and nectar comes in, and as soon as it enters our body, it's like turning on a light in a dark room. Our body completely filled with this amazing light energy, which purifies the darkness of our negative karma. So again, the purifying and what are the 3 principles, the 3 main poisons of greed, hatred, and ignorance, right? You hear it said many different ways, but those are the easiest ways to say it. Greed, clinging, attachment, or afflictive emotions, afflictive attachment. Not all attachment is afflictive. So on. So greed, hatred, and ignorance. And all the other 84,000 illusions, negative, delusions that the Buddha talked about. All that's completely purified, just as the light comes on. Yeah. So we can purify our negative karma, body, speech, and mind. Now, the easiest way, body and speech are actually pretty easy to control if we have, particularly if we have vows taken in front of a holy being to avoid, certain actions of body and speech. You can, as we said earlier, you can keep your hands to yourself and your mouth shut, and you will not create negative karma or body and speech, usually. The mind, constantly out of control, right? Chasing after objects of desire, attachment, gets pretty activated. By the way, we talked about the different, we haven't talked about this much, but the biggest obstacles to our meditation practice are excitement and dullness, our mind getting like heavy and dull. And so sometimes we might be meditating and we're like following our breath and the mind goes off, and it's just so easy to bring it back because we go, oh, I'm thinking. You might even label it thinking or something. You bring the mind back and you're back on the breath. That's easy. But what if it's a really powerful emotion? Like, for example, your spouse is leaving you or somebody died that you're close to and you have such strong emotions and you can't just let it go. It's not easy to let it go. Those are the times when we can use the analytical meditations that we might have learned. These are the thought transformation teachings that there's a whole class on that. But sometimes you have to go deeper. And ultimately, meditating on emptiness is the way to let go of our negative mind states. Okay? So, when the mind's agitated and excited and racing after everything, there are certain things that we can do, like maybe the 9-round breathing, or meditation for a moment on death and impermanence. Again, if you can't just let it go and come back, then you have to do these analytical meditations to settle your mind down. And if you're experiencing sloth and torpor and heaviness, and we don't meditate long enough to do that around here, but if you're doing a long retreat and you just get really sleepy and dull, sometimes this is when it's good to have your eyes slightly open, letting some light in. Kind of keeps the mind alert. And they're different in the book. Kathleen McDonald mentions a whole bunch of different techniques. Sometimes the best thing to do is just to end the meditation and go to bed. But standing up, taking some deep breaths, moving your shoulders around, moving your body, and then recommitting to the practice. Again, ways to bring your mind back from these different obstacles that inevitably arise if you do any serious meditation practice. So, Vajrasattva, let's do that. So, Vajrasattva practice is done in the context of the 4 opponent powers. I think there's some things in here I'm going to read. But yeah. So the 4 opponent powers. We talk about the first one is the 4 R's. The first one is reliance. Okay, and the power of reliance, and what we rely on is, as Buddhists. Now, if you're practicing in another tradition, you could actually do this, but we rely on the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. our sources of inspiration and compassion. As Mahayana Buddhists, we rely on compassion for ourselves and for others. So this is kind of the touchstone. This is where we start the purification practice, is remembering these things, the three jewels, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and compassion. And then the second R is regret. So bring to mind in the next few moments some things that you regret. Maybe you did something today, you said something, maybe yesterday, maybe last week. You can scan these actions of body, speech, and mind, like killing and stealing, taking what wasn't freely offered, sexual misconduct, lying and deceiving others, bad-mouthing others. We do that all the time and don't even think about it. Harsh speech that disturbs others' minds, mindless gossip. And so on. Bring to mind anything that you've done with body, speech, or mind that you regret. It's always good to do it. This practice said to be like, should be done at the end of the day, particularly. So you can clean off your slate. Because karma, again, you hate to do this to you, but you remember all the laws of karma, but one of them stands out, and it grows exponentially. So the karma, when you got angry at your spouse or somebody at work today or whatever happened that brought up a lot of negativity, if you don't purify it now, it's just going to grow exponentially from a karmic mental potential perspective, eventually causing something really much bigger and more, damaging than if we catch it now while it's small. So it's really good to review your day, review your actions of body, speech, and mind, and do this practice. So think about specific things that you regret, just for the next minute or two. It doesn't have to be just today. In past lives we've killed. We can say, I regret, feel regret for having killed and stolen things that weren't ours, and sexual misconduct, and lying, slander, harsh, frivolous speech, all we've done many times in this life, past lifetimes. Greed, hatred, ignorance, pride, jealousy, and so on. So much of that. So all of that karma, the ultimate way to eliminate it is through meditation on emptiness, but we're not there yet. So at least we can weaken these karmic seeds by doing Vajrasattva practice. All right, and then the next one is the power of remedy. All right, so we started out with reliance on the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and compassion. And the next R was regret. Bring into mind things that we sincerely regret. If we think, well, I didn't do anything today that memorable. Well, you've done it all in past lifetimes, so just bring to mind things that you've done maybe in the past, in this lifetime or past lifetimes, but just be open to the fact that we all have storehouses of negative karma waiting to ripen and torment us if we don't do something about it. Then the next one is the power of the remedy. This is where we do Vajrasattva practice. And then the last power, which we'll get into when we finish Vajrasattva, is is the power, and said to be the most powerful, most important one of all, is the power of resolve. It's like, I vow not to do this again for a second, a minute, an hour, half a day, maybe the rest of your life if possible. Some things, some karma, some of our habits are so strongly ingrained. We don't want to create more karma by lying, but more negative karma. So the power of reliance is important, but we want to set a realistic goal for avoiding negative actions. But let's get back to the power of the remedy. So here we are. Sit up straight. Imagine Vajrasattva. Now you can say this mantra, Om Vajrasattva Om. You can say it under your breath or just softly so the person next to you can't hear it. But let's start out by imagining on a lotus in a moon seat, moon disk, and there's Vajrasattva, seated in the lotus posture, hands crossed, holding a bell in the left hand and a vajra, this thing called a dorje or vajra in the right hand, hands crossed at the heart, symbolizing the union of method and wisdom. And I feel the living presence of an enlightened being above your head, not just some hologram or static image, but like a living presence. And his only wish is to help us purify these seeds that will ultimately ripen in suffering if we don't address them. And so at his heart is a disc, and around the edges of this disc, if you know the 100-syllable mantra, you would imagine that with a hum sitting in HUM sitting in the middle, and there's a Sanskrit hum, and you can just imagine the letters HUM. But we're just going to do Om Vajrasattva hum around the edges of this disc at his heart. And as we say the mantra, light and nectar will come from that at his heart and enter the crown of our head. And for the first, we'll do it 21 times. And as we do it, it'll purify the negative karma of our body. Remember, it goes through our body, pushing all that negativity down through the lower orifices and into emptiness below. All the negative karma of our body will be completely purified of actions of our body, killing, stealing, and so forth. So imagine the light and nectar coming through the crown of your head, pushing that negativity completely out of your body and into oblivion, disappearing forever. And we'll say the mantra. Om Vajrasattva Om, 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 Om Vajrasattva Om Vajrasattva Om. And now feel that you've been purified of that negative karma body. Again, light and nectar is coming from Vajrasattva's heart and the syllables. And entering the crown of your head, this time purifying your negative karma of speech. We'll do it again, we'll do it 21 times. Imagine the visualization now, filling from the bottom up, and at the top is like the dirt. And it goes out through the orifices, the upper orifices of our body, and our negative karma of speech is completely purified as we say this mantra. But again, very important to feel that this is coming from this living presence of an enlightened being above our head, and that we're letting go of this negativity of speech. So a lot to keep in mind, but we can do it. Om Vajra Sattva Om, Om Vajra Sattva Om, Om Vajra Sattva Om. Om Vajra Sattva Om, Om Vajra Sattva Om. And now, feel that your speech has been completely purified. Completely purified of every trace of negativity. And now, we're going to purify the mind. Again, the principal delusions are greed, hatred, and ignorance, but there are plenty more. All of this is taking the form of some darkness that completely fills our body. And as we say, as the light and nectar enters from the crown of our head, instantly our body's completely filled with light. And that negativity, negative karma is purified. So again, from Bhaivasattva above the crown of our head, his heart, light and nectar entering the crown of our head, as we say it again. Like Om Bhaivasattva Om, Om Vajrasattva Om, Om Vajrasattva Om, Om Vajrasattva Om, Om Vajrasattva Om Vajrasattva Om. And then we can do it one more time. And this is to purify subtle obstacles, subtle obscurations to omniscience, to us achieving Buddhahood. So this one, and don't freak out, but the request in this particular visualization is to be able to try to visualize all three at one time. So the light coming down, pushing out the negative karma of our body. Again, like liquid filling up our bodies, purifying our speech, and then coming, through the crown of our head, purifying our mind, instantly the light coming on. So you imagine that we can do all three of these at one time as we purify the subtle obscurations to omniscience, preventing us from becoming fully enlightened being. Om Bhaivasattva Om, Om Bhaivasattva Om, Om Bhaivasattva Om. Om Bhaivasattva Om. So you want to feel that your body, your speech, and your mind are now completely purified. Before we started this practice, maybe we had a little bit of stuff on our, we really don't think very much of ourselves. If you listen to the self-talk, most of it is negative. Most of it is putting us down. But here, we're all of that is gone. We've let it go by doing this practice. So our body, speech, and mind, we want to feel that we've been purified by this practice. And then the last one is the power of the resolve. That's as much as possible. If you're thinking of something specific that you did, again, you want to come up with a time that you think you can keep your word. I mean, sometimes I know when I do this practice, I'll think, well, I mean, I can't give up attachment. That's like the air I breathe, It's always there. But so sometimes you might say, well, as much as possible, I'm going to make an effort to be aware of when my mind is clinging or when I'm feeling angry or something, as much as possible. But if there's something specific that you want to try to work on, you set a specific time, like for 1 minute, I'm not going to allow myself to get angry. Keep your word. So you want to make a realistic statement of regret for the amount of time that you can keep it. I know in AA they say 1 day at a time, which is so cool. It's the same idea. Just make a commitment for a period of time that you can keep it. Again, this is said to be the most important of the 4 opponent powers, the most important one. All right, so there's a little statement in here that Vajrasattva says, but I cannot have to find it. Well, I'll tell you what I remember. Vajrasattva looks at you and says, a child of the lineage, all your negative karma, obscurations, delusions, broken commitments have been completely purified. And then Vajrasattva, above the crown of your head, melts into light, enters your body, and melts and comes to your heart and then completely fills your body. His Vajrasattva energy completely fills your body. And you're completely one with holy Vajrasattva's body, speech, and mind, completely pure. Again, this is, if you have some intuitive feeling that something has shifted, you feel something positive that's happened, you hold on to that feeling. You place your mind on that experience and hold it as long as you can. Okay, so let's do the dedication verses and we'll wrap up how to meditate. I do recommend this book. Really good book. And yeah, it's kind of like my new favorite book. All right, so Linda, where's Shanti Deva's dedication verses?
Page
It's all over
32,
all over the
33.
place. Pardon?
32, 33.
Okay. By the way, I want to thank each of you that have shown up here, both online and in person, for taking time out of your life. You could have been doing a lot of other things and hanging out with each other and me, and also it gives me an opportunity. You know, if nobody showed up, I wouldn't be here either. You know, so it gives me an opportunity to revisit these things that are really I found helpful in my life, and that I think are amazing. And so it gives me that opportunity. So thank you for supporting each other, supporting yourself, your mental health and your happiness, and also supporting Kadampa Center just by your presence, and you know, that's hugely generous. So thank you for that. And Linda, thank you as always for, and you know, just doing a great job and keeping this thing together. And Chris sitting back there being quiet, but always making a difference. Thank you for your presence and help too. So we'll.
Thank you, Don,
Yeah,
for
you're
leading
welcome.
this course.
This has been, you know, I cherish these opportunities. They say that you teach what you most need to know. That would be me, for sure. All right, so dedication. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean and happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with the mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored and finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvest. May all medicines be effective and wholesome pears fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, till then, may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Okay. Everybody passed. You all got A's.
Thank you so much, John. Thanks, everyone, in person, on Zoom, on YouTube. I appreciate your being here. Don't forget, next week, Monday, the 27th, we take a break, and then we pick things back up with presenting the path on April 4th. We'll see you then.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
Thanks, Don. Thanks, Linda. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Don.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.